welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me on a Saturday, which, guys, this is special. We don't do Saturday podcasts hardly ever, but I've got Jason Gallagher on the pod. You guys know Jason because he's somebody that tells JJ Redick and LeBron James what to do. So, Jason, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Dreams do come true, children. You just wait and you work hard. You can eventually be on the Down to Dunk podcast. Truly a dream come true. Thanks for asking me. I'm excited.
Glad to have you. I saw last night you got a T-shirt that was half Mavs, half Thunder. Where are you emotionally this morning with regards to this upcoming series?
Where I'm at is I don't think it's any secret that I have been a Mavs fan for my entire life, and I still am. But it's one of those really torn things. It's like my parents, my family, me, like we all love the Mavs. But now that I'm going to more Thunder games and I see you at them, it's impossible not to love the Thunder. Like that's my take. It's physically impossible to go to games and not love them. And my child loves them. I really think the barking thing might have swayed him a bit. Although he has no idea when to bark. He barked when I took him the other night. He barked when Isaiah Joe made a three, and I was like, brother, you gotta learn how to do this. So I don't know. I think the way I am is that I think this is a win-win situation for me personally.
Hey, yes.
And that's and I can't wait to watch the basketball because I'm genuinely, as an objective basketball fan, I think this series is gonna rock.
Yeah, I agree.
Where are you at?
Where am I at? Man, I'm just so excited. Yeah. There's some selfish pieces of me too that wanted this to happen because now I can very easily go to away games. Whereas if it's in LA, it just wasn't going to happen. So that is exciting for me. And for the basketball itself and for a rivalry to be birthed is something that I'm also excited for because it's been weird. And maybe you can speak to this a little bit. The Mavs Thunder rivalry never has really existed, but they have played in the playoffs before on more than one occasion.
Correct.
But it never felt like there was like any animosity.
No. I think when you think back to that, to their playoff like matchups, it was like the 1 year Dirk was just like on fire.
Yep.
And he's not like the type of personality that's going to start shit or anything like that. I guess he and Perk, I remember at one point they kind of did, but it's like, what is that? And then after that, it was just like, you guys just kept stomping the Mavs. I guess you could say the Thunder had a rivalry with Salah Medri there for a minute.
There was some Salah Medri beef, certainly.
But since then, no, I'm with you, and I think that they have the personalities for it. I like that's the most important thing is that I was kind of hoping that we'd see more like Booker Luka series but then I realized Luka's just a shit talker, and that's what he is. And so we'll see who I think it's going to be Dub. Like I want it so bad. I want them to go back and forth so bad. No, but I think that there's three teams that like I would love to see like a rivalry format of one of them, and it's like Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Dallas, like something. They got three dynamic young players. It could be a lot of fun. So, but this is going to be great.
So, as a Mavs fan, what are the things that scare you most about the Thunder?
Definitely, they're. I am of the opinion that they have the best. They play very intentional basketball, which is something I've picked up that phrase from stupid JJ. And they're just like they play every possession like incredibly intentional. Like there's not really possessions that aren't schemes. I guess it feels like it's very the coaching really freaks me out because I really Jason Kidd I think is a good like big picture coach. Like that to me is coaching is there's a lot of skill sets involved, and Kidd has the locker room and he's good at like the pregame strategy for the most part. But then when it's like close 5 minutes left, I get a little nervous, even though Dallas is good in the clutch, but I think it's a little bit more random on the Dallas side than it is Oklahoma. So that really, freaks me out a bit. So I think the fact that Dagnall's been watching the Mavs for a few days and focusing and concentrating freaks me out. If I was a Mavs fan, I would not, because like he's coming up with
your way, man. He is squinting your way right now.
He is like Michael Cera, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to see, because I mean the Thunder looked great in round 1, but
yeah,
I've been kind of saying like, listen, that was the worst team in the playoffs. You know,
it probably was. It probably was. And they had some really interesting stats. I think I texted you this. Like the Pelicans hadn't won a game all season where they were down heading into the fourth, which is wild. So that was. I do think that's probably I don't know. The Thunder are well coached, so who knows if this is just conventional wisdom talking or what it is. But like, I do think the sort of Dallas going through a bit of a battle might put them a little in favor in terms of the battle tested part. You know what I mean?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, Luka's been through a lot, and obviously Kyrie Irving has been through a lot.
Yeah.
I think the status of Maxi Kleber is going to be really interesting, because he will allow them to be a little bit more switchy and then also just spread the court. And he shot the ball really well, but he landed so hard on his shoulder and then couldn't come back in. That to me is like a really big deal. I think that Gafford and Lively have been awesome.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see if they do any cross matching with Giddey, because defensively, that's where it becomes really hard to guard the Thunder.
Yeah.
People are starting to realize this too. Like, you cross match not necessarily because you think Giddey is a terrible player. You cross match because Chet is so hard to deal with on the perimeter.
Yeah.
And so you have to have a place to put your drop big. And it just so happens you have this like shaky perimeter player in Giddey that you can hide him on. But that, to me, if you have to play Gafford and Lively as your two bigs and like the whole time, I think that it makes things a little bit more complicated for the Mavs, that you don't have like that extra look if Maxi can't go.
100%. And I think that's been the thing. There's been a couple things that have made the Mavs different this year than even playoffs past. One is the optionality at big. That was what was frustrating with prior iterations of the Mavs, was that when we had our optionality, it was spread the floor with Maxi, or it was go Dwight Powell, and that just wasn't cutting it. And so getting these two bigs has been massive. The other part is obviously Kyrie, because Dallas, I mean, I'll be curious to see how this series goes. They traditionally either kill people or get killed, and there's kind of no in between. I went to so many playoff games a couple of years ago, and that it just felt like either a blowout or they're blowing someone out.
Well, I saw you right after game 1 of this first round series, and it was, I mean, they got just dismantled in game 1.
And I think it's just like that they are obviously a hit or miss team. They shoot a ton of threes. It's very heliocentric around Luka, but I think that Kyrie's sort of understanding that he is the one who needs to sort of take over during games like that. And that's how Dallas is winning sort of these grittier, grimier games, especially in LA. I think it's just through sort of obviously defensive effort was huge, but the Kyrie piece of it is very important. I will say that I think that if Maxi's out, you know, when the Mavs initially traded for PJ Washington, I mean, Kidd specifically said, like, we're going to try him at the 5. We haven't seen much of that, but I could see a world in which they go, all right, we're going to go PJ at the 5, Derek Jones at the 4, and just try it. Like, I could totally see that. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you probably have to at least try that if it's not working, you know, if like the traditional big isn't working.
Yeah.
How do you see the Mavs guarding Shea and J-Dub? Like, who do you think gets those assignments?
I think it's a combination between PJ and Derek Jones. I mean, they were pretty awesome against the Clippers. Now the Clippers, there's a couple games where they just like were hitting. They couldn't miss, but I don't think it was for a lack of defense. You know, I think that those two are the primary players. They'll probably throw Josh Green in there in the mix. But I think if they can do things their way, that's the optimal but we're going to see a lot of switching on Luka, like for sure.
Yeah.
Especially he's been really bad with like drawing fouls early and putting him in that really precarious situation. But I think ideally that's what they'll throw
Yeah,
at him.
he got 2 quick fouls last night. Where it was just,
That's been at the last 3 games. He just keeps getting these 2 quick fouls. But shout out them. They keep him on the floor, and he does an okay enough job to sort of not get that third.
yeah. What's the deal with Dante Exum? He's like just doesn't really play.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me because I really like. I mean, he has been a massive key player for Dallas, and maybe the matchups are just bad. I don't know. I have no idea. It's so weird, and I think that I think defensively. I mean, he played a lot. He played a lot in regular season matchups, right? I mean, like I think he would be great against some of like either Dub or Shea, at least to throw another option there. I think they're gonna try more in this series than they will the Clippers. Again, the Clippers are sort of like short rotation. You kind of know what they're gonna do. So maybe there was just no need to experiment as much. I think this is gonna have to be like you're gonna have to throw a lot of things out there.
Yeah, because the Mavs are really just playing like 7 guys, where it's like Josh Green and Lively off the bench, and then the Clippers like feel like they pulled the plug on Russell Westbrook last night even and just played.
It wasn't his best series. I mean, how are you feeling about this matchup? How are you feeling about their approach to Luka?
I mean, I think that it's going to be obviously a lot of Lou Dort, and I think that watching the Clippers and how that they would cover with Terrence Mann is like you could screen Terrence Mann off of Luka pretty easily, and part of that's like Lively and Gafford are pretty good screen setters, and so that helps. But I'm so curious to see how Dort handles that because Dort will fight through and over screens all night.
Mm-hmm.
And he is an absolute maniac.
Yeah.
That to me is like when you're not, because we see this in playoff games with every single team is like the switching happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's let me choose my defender, and that is like playoff basketball.
Yeah.
Well, Dort is like he's a different beast when it comes to that because he just doesn't let you do it.
Yeah.
And I want to see what that looks like. I want to see like what's the Mavs strategy there because if it's Dort the whole time on him, he's going to be very frustrated because Lou just doesn't stop. To me, like that's the key is like Lou, and then I think Cason Wallace is another guy who I think could like if Josh Giddey is showing that like he's not really made for this series, which could be possible. Like this could be a big Cason Wallace series because he on Kyrie. I think could be a thing, or even him taking some turns on Luka could be part of this too.
Yeah, it's that'll be really interesting. He's not played great, Luka. He's not like I will say that Mavs fans are not upset with it because the effort has been like pretty great elsewhere. And he's not. I feel like the lack of shot making hasn't slowed down his like decision making. That's something that Tim Legler's big on. Is that like even when you're shut down, like you have to still be a threat. And Luka's so good, you can't ever just be like, oh, he's not a threat this game. Whatever. He's always going to be a threat. Oh, yeah. But no, I agree. Lou's going to give him hell. I just know it. And by the way, preview for the next Mind the Game. They spend a lot of time talking about Lou Dort.
Oh, really?
They love Lou Dort, and it's like a long segment on Lou Dort. It's great.
That's awesome. Lou deserves it, man. Like Lou deserves a lot of praise for what he's done. This really throughout his whole career. Going undrafted to playing in that 7-game series with the Rockets, and like just being completely unafraid to take a kajillion threes, and even if he missed all of them, and then he's like made himself into a legitimately good offensive player through just. And he even says it like through just take all the dumb shots out of my game. Right. Like that's what he did this year. And that's how he's just become a much better player. And then obviously I think the defense is even better this year than it has been.
His?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I think, it helps when your teammates are also very good defenders. It sort of
Yes.
builds your own confidence on it. My other question for you was kind of the inverse of the Chet situation with Maxey. Is just sort of
Yeah.
like, if it is Gafford and Lively a lot, I mean, they did pretty good on Valanciunas. I mean, at times Valanciunas, I was like, is he gonna have 50? What's going on? But what's your take on that? Is there any sort of like worry that Dallas is too big?
I think this is a lot different than Valanciunas because you have to be so much faster as a drop big, and you have to be so much more intentional with it because Valanciunas is just pretty slow.
Yeah, and it's a lot of back to the basket.
Yeah, he's going to muscle you to points. Whereas with Dallas, it's slip the screen, they're at the hoop, and you have Luka and you have whoever it is, whether it's Lively or Gafford, and they're at the hoop ready to dunk on your head.
Right.
And it's a different challenge. It is certainly a different kind of challenge that, one, I wonder if it's very well suited for a guy like Jay Will, who's not that fast himself. Chet's going to have to stay out of foul trouble. Is what I think. He's going to have to play a lot of minutes, and he's going to have to stay out of foul trouble.
Yeah,
if he can do that, I think that you can favor him because I think he's going to shoot better than he did in round one. I think it was only 30% from three. I think it's going to be a little better from there. And he helps spread the court so much, and he helps just make things weird on the defensive end for the other team that I think he's got a good chance to win that matchup. But if he's not quick with his defensive decisions, if he's not able to protect the rim like he needs to, it could be a long series for Chet because these guys are just different. And the fact that you have two of them, that you can, it's not just one guy you have to deal with. You can keep those guys pretty fresh.
Yeah.
So I think, I wonder what other looks the Thunder will give Dallas. I think they'll give Jay Will a chance to be out there.
Yeah, they have to.
And then I wonder what they do with Kenrich Williams too, who is not a rim protector, but a bigger, stronger guy that can be kind of an irritant as a small ball big. So I wonder if they unwrap him a little bit. He didn't play a lot.
That's what's going to have to be so key. I mean, it really does kind of come back to Lou. That's what makes someone like that, someone who's going to fight through screens rather than switch off, because you can't put Chet in a precarious situation where he's having to choose, it's like Dallas is just so good at exploiting that. And so, I don't know. Lou's going to be massive this series. He's going to have to be.
He's the fulcrum of the defense and has been all season. I think people have a lot of times people have a hard time talking about the Thunder in general just because I don't know how much they're watching, but people say Chet's their best defender, or even I've heard people say that J-Dub is the best defender on the Thunder. And it's just,
I think
people talked about Shea because they look at the steal.
Put Shea on his all defensive team. You know what I mean? It's just, it's a weird team. It's a really weird team.
Shea is a good defender. There's no doubt about it, but he's not Lou, and nobody is. And maybe after this run, people will be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, Lou's on the all defensive first or second team or whatever." But I don't think that's going to happen this year. But I for sure think it's happening next year. And this is where
he's in the Drew Holiday. Wait, why isn't this guy won Defensive Player of the Year kind of zone where we were all 6 years too late. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
What else about the Thunder could give the Mavs problems? What else is on Mavs fans' minds?
Boy. I think that I think we've already sort of hashed it out a little bit, but I think that the Maxey thing, if he's not in that as much as we're sort of talking about the Mavs giving Chet problems, I think the other way around, big time. And we've kind of I've been sort of deemed in Mavs land a little bit of a Maxey hater, and I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. It's fake news. I just think that when he's not hitting, he's not as effective. But anyways, so I think I think Chet actually kind of worries me. I think that it's more about just having the horses it's crazy because like the sort of like guard 1-2 punch, it's such a chess match, and it's like controlling Shea and Dub. Like, can the Mavs do that? And that I don't know. I don't know. And but it's the same thing on the other end. Can you control Luka and Kyrie? Can you? And then it's gonna, like, not to sound too Shaquille O'Neal or whatever, but it is like, who's gonna knock down shots? And like the Thunder are a really good 3-point shooting team.
Yeah.
That also freaks me out. The Mavs are much streakier in my mind. I think that they have a good percentage, but it's like they all, when one's not shooting well, they're all not shooting well, and it's really weird. I don't know what's going on, but that part of it, I think that the Thunder, I think that they're like kind of like perimeter shooting players. Maybe this is just a vibes thing, but it feels like they're more consistent. It feels like the Isaiah Joes of the world are gonna. I feel like every game I go to, like 2 of them are going off. You know what I mean? And that's something that Dallas, I mean, they have to match that. You know what I mean? And sometimes they don't. And I guarantee you're going to see a Mavs blowout at some point in this series. 100%. Yeah. That's just the way they do things.
Well, when you look back at the season series with the Thunder and Mavs, it was one of the weirdest.
Weird. My favorite Mavs loss of all time. When they came back, when they went on a 30-0 run and lost, I literally sat there like an hour later. I was like, what just, I was so flabbergasted. And shout out the Thunder, man. It's like hard to win that game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was definitely bizarre. And when you look at, like, the Thunder killed the Mavs in one game, they got murdered by them 146-111 in another. You had like the weird comeback game. I kind of just think you throw all that out. Like, you just have to.
I completely agree. I will say that another like real. I mean, both crowds are really good. I think I think both of them have not played away games like this before.
Yeah.
Where it's like New Orleans, not a great crowd. Clippers, not a great crowd. But Dallas is pretty good. Oklahoma is like a college town. And I think Mavs fans are really good. They're like, when the big moments happen, they're as crazy as ever. But like Oklahoma City is like a steady drum beat that just never stops. And I love Thunder home games. Like everyone's just bought in. When someone says defense, they all say defense. That's not happening in Dallas. But the big moments, yeah. So I think that that's going to be really fascinating. Just speaking of the vibes. So yeah, I don't know. I'd be so curious to see how each team sort of handles like a crazy, away game.
Yeah, that to me is going to be interesting for the Thunder and for Thunder fans that are going to like there'll be Thunder fans in Dallas too, which I don't know if Thunder fans have experienced Mavs fans in Dallas yet, but it's a different experience. I went my first experience with Mavs fans. I think I was like 16, and I was a Lakers fan because I was a big Shaq and a big Kobe guy. And I went to see the Lakers and Mavs, and I was ripped apart the whole night from like when I walked in the arena, sitting down. I was like, it was just unbelievable. The Mavs fans were relentless. And I was like, I think I'm going to take my kids to one of the games, and I was just like, man, like this is going to be an experience for you guys. You got to be ready. You got to have some thick skin to show up in this game.
You do, but it's like that. The one thing that worries me about Dallas, and I love Dallas. I don't want anyone from Dallas to get it wrong, but like Dallas can be way more. I went to every game of the playoffs 2 years ago.
Yeah,
and early round, so fun.
Yeah,
towards the later rounds, it became a little bit more of a scene. And like the fans were less like rabid because it was more like just super wealthy people just going to games. Oh. And I hope that doesn't happen for Dallas' sake. It was noticeable. Like Mavs Twitter would talk about it and be like, dude, we got to like figure out a way to get the fans back into the arena. So that's one thing I don't think is going to happen in Oklahoma. Yeah. So it should be interesting. I'll tell you one thing I'm not looking forward to in this series is that MVP is going to get announced.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
One of them is going to get above the other.
Yeah, somebody's getting second, somebody's getting third.
And the discourse on Twitter is going to be annoying as hell. As somebody who lives in both worlds, who
Yeah.
has haters in both worlds that are like
Uh,
if I tweet something positive about the Thunder, they're like, wow, you've changed. And then if I tweet something positive about the Mavs, they're like, get out of my state. It's
yeah.
it's like the discourse is going to be
Oh,
unbelievable.
yeah. It's gonna be, but that's what's gonna make this rivalry. I actually kind of love that that's when it's gonna be announced, and whether it's Shea or Luca, whoever is above. I
I think it's
honestly,
going to be Shea. You think are you with me on that? I think Shea's going to beat
I
Shea.
think it will be Shea.
Yeah.
Part of me wishes that it was Luca getting second, just to like add an extra chip on the shoulder. Because whoever gets, I actually think it's almost advantage to whoever gets third. Like
I
this
agree.
has happened through the course of NBA history.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
Luca's a particular psycho. Okay, I'll just put Luca wears his psycho on his sleeves.
oh
You know
yeah,
what I mean? Much more
yes,
than Shea, much more
yep,
than I think any basketball player that good has to be a psycho.
yeah,
But I think Luca's gonna like go full villain mode if he's third.
yeah. um, I want to get just like your take on like you've gotten to know J Dub. You
Yeah.
know, I just want to like tell us about like what that experience has been like. I've gotten to know him too, but like I just want to know, your thoughts on him, his game, just his personality, all of that, just from a
Um,
more of a closer standpoint.
so my favorite non-Maverick player of all time is Russell Westbrook. A lot of people.
Okay.
I was one of the very few fans in that arena when he got kicked out. That was like, friggin' love him, love him. I really like. Look, the NBA, in my opinion, as much as it is a sport, it is an entertainment league, and you need people that understand that they are, in fact, in some ways, entertainers. And
Mhm.
I think J Dub is like really turning into one of the most fun personalities. Not to mention the basketball, but just in terms of personalities,
Yep.
he's so fun. And like my entry point into the league, by the way, into this industry was I wrote a 2.5 hour long musical. That's how much I love personalities. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he is just, um, you know, I know the barking thing, but that's freaking awesome. That's a guy who understands I'm in a once in a lifetime situation, and I
Mhm.
am going to have the most fun with it as possible. And you can tell that from him. So I love that. On the personal side, I will say this: like I do judge players based on um, how they approach doing podcasts, and one of the big things I always sort of judge is like how do they treat the crew
Yeah.
being me. I know it's very dumb and it's very like self-centered, but
Yeah.
it is sort of like like Steph, so kind, just so
Mhm.
kind. And then there's some players that like pretend you don't exist or whatever. And Dub is like one of the very few players that he and I like side chatting while JJ's there. It's that he wasn't like overly suck uppy to JJ. He was so cool to everybody. We did it in Oklahoma City at a place called Lampstand. So there were other workers there and stuff like that. He was so nice to everybody. So it's like, I don't know. He just has like one of those like really contagiously sort of like positive personalities,
Mhm.
and I think he's awesome.
Yeah.
He is morphing into one of my favorites, and he's checking like every box for me. I don't see the downside yet. At one point, like he joined me in making fun of JJ's obsession with golf, and I was just like, my guy.
he he is the best. He really is. Like it is a huge blessing to have him in Oklahoma City and on this team. Like it's
Totally. I mean, and Shea is like obviously awesome player, but I think that I think that it's great that like the most probably sort of loud, passionate guy on the team is like not Shea. Like I think it's kind of awesome, and that's a little bit of what like if the Thunder had stayed healthy or stayed together longer, that you would have seen that same thing where it was like Russ wasn't the best player on the team, but he's sort of the heart and soul, the guy screaming at the crowd, all that stuff. Like that's a good recipe. And if a certain player hadn't just left, I think it would have really worked.
Yeah, I think it's and Shea probably likes it too. Cause like J-Dub wants the spotlight. He loves being center of attention. Like he wants all of it. He wants to. I mean, he's expressed like I want to have good relationships with the fans. I want to have a special relationship with the fans. And it's not that Shea doesn't. Like Shea does a lot of stuff too, but he's just not quite as out there. as J-Dub is. Like Shea, seriously, he signs for every single person that wants his signature, that walks into the building. Like that is really special, and like he's forming a special bond with the fan base. But J-Dub is just more obviously social media. I mean, he wore a shirt that like Down to Dunk created. You know, like it's like those little things. Like and it's all very intentional. Like he knows what he's doing. He knows that he's forming this bond with the city and with the fan base, and it's amazing.
Why not? How often do you get to be like, you know, if I just kind of like, if I play into this a little bit, I can own this city for the rest of my life. That is a little bit why, not to go and rehash, you know, the past, but when people are like, oh, you know, why would you want to do this in Oklahoma City? I'm sort of like, well, one, it's 2024. You can live anywhere. You can do anything you want.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. If the lifestyle thing is like an issue, but like, how often do you get to be like, I'm going to become an icon in an entire state? You know what I mean? And it's like Russell Westbrook might get a statue here. Like he's never going to pay for a meal in this state ever again. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He could build a castle and you know what I mean? Like that. I mean,
it's true.
So awesome. And so I don't know. I just like guys that understand that. And that's why I like Luka, to be honest, is I think he also is kind of like one of those people that is like an entertainer, and both good and bad, but he is an entertainer, you know.
How do you think Luka is physically? Like he obviously in game 5, you know, he said like, I probably wouldn't play if this was a regular season game. I was sick. His knee hurts. There was a specific play where there was like a loose ball and he and Russ were going after it, and you could tell he was just like, I am not going to like mix it up here, and he kind of let Russ get it. But then on the other hand, like he's still like Luka, like he still can just dominate because he doesn't necessarily rely on like being quick-footed and having like tremendous athleticism. Like he is just he's very deliberate with everything he does. But like what's your thoughts on just how he's feeling and how he's looked?
I mean, I think that the knee thing is the good thing about him is that he's never needed to move particularly quick to be effective. And so I think that's why he's still sort of finding that success. But look, when Dallas fans get most behind him, it's when he is actually like going crazy, like on defense, diving for balls, things like that. Yeah. And I think I think Dallas needs him to be that against Oklahoma City. And that does worry me because the knee thing is real. But I also think in that moment too, again, the foul trouble thing is like very real with him.
Yeah, true.
Trying to play a lot of defense, and he's getting, you know, quick whistles. And so I think there was some of that too. I don't know, man. It's really hard to tell because he's also like, not to stereotype, but he does have that sort of European quality of over exaggerating injuries and over exaggerating. If he misses a layup, he's usually going to kind of limp back. Like that's just very like Luka. And so it's very difficult, but I will say that his shot's not falling. The lift doesn't seem there. And so that, to me, that's been the most telling sign, is that the shot feels a little off. And it feels like he's just barely jumping. Not that he was ever jumping high before, but it feels like he's barely jumping.
Yeah, it does feel a little different. Okay, Jason, I'm gonna let you go. Before we go, what's your pick? What's your pick for the series?
I have to do this?
Yeah. This is part of being on the show.
Man, I suppose I pick Mavs in 7.
Okay.
But I will say that as my final word on this podcast, I am personally offended by how much people have underrated the Thunder. And like I've actually gone to JJ and been like, can we do like an explainer video about why this team isn't like a typical young team?
Yeah.
And I think any Mavs fan I've seen on my timeline that are like Mavs in 4, Mavs in 5, I think you're just not watching. Period. End of story. This is not a typical young team. They play with a maturity that just doesn't exist in young teams. This is a special, unique team. And all of the youngest team to do X, Y, and Z. That's there for a reason. You know what I mean? They were the number one friggin' seed. That is not, that just doesn't happen. You don't just do that.
Not
so
in this conference. Yeah.
I think that I like hesitant when I say Mavs in 7. I mean, like, you could tell me anything. I do think it's going 6 or 7. And I do think it would not shock me at all if OKC beat Dallas. Like that, it wouldn't shock me if either outcome. But I think that anyone underestimating Oklahoma City is not watching basketball. They read a lot of Twitter and they check out the quote cards on ESPN, and that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. The Thunder haven't lost a game in like 3 weeks. And so that first loss is going to feel like 100 losses, I think, to the Thunder fans in this series.
Yeah. Luckily, Dallas is like just, I mean, the discourse around Dallas this season also offended me. And if you follow me on Twitter, you could tell that. But they also, it's like that we've gone through stretches where we were like, we got to blow this up.
Yeah. Fire Jason. There was like a good like 2 weeks where the only topic on Mavs podcast was fire Jason Kidd.
Oh, it's still kind of a topic. It's kind of it's wild, but it's yeah. So Dallas fans they're just the most angsty, weird bunch of people. I will say, before the start of next season, I think you ought to have Tyler and I on together because we have some really good like. He was living with me and my wife. Tyler Parker, for those who don't know, he was living with me and my wife in Chicago when we were all doing improv out there.
Yeah.
And my wife and I were married at the time, and we had this third roommate because we wanted a bigger place. And it was a Mavs Thunder. I want to say it was 2012 Mavs Thunder.
Oh, yeah.
And we like legitimately couldn't. We had like my wife had to put like a rule we weren't allowed to talk about it because we would get really mean to each other. And like we were young. So if he would say something about Jason Terry and it would like personally offend me, or I would tell him that like Harden is like whatever, and it would personally offend him. So yeah, we've got some good long deep sea. If you want to know if there's a Thunder Mavs rivalry, it's between Tyler Parker and I. That's all.
Yeah, we should just have you guys. Tyler's coming back here, right?
He is. Yeah, he's coming with Kyle Mann.
Yeah. I'm doing something with Kyle later. Or maybe earlier this next week. But you guys should both come to the Down to Dunk studio and let's do it. We should do it live here.
Yes. Tell me when.
Yeah. Let's do it like maybe next Tuesday or something.
Excellent. Okay.
Either maybe before the game or maybe even Wednesday after the game or something. After
you tell me, brother. I'm there.
We should seriously do it. I'll text. We'll get a little group text going.
We can also do a road trip down to Dallas pod.
Oh my God.
Live from Windstar Casino, baby.
We got to get sponsored. But this is why this is so great too. It's like, fans will travel both ways, and it will be great. It's gonna be great. It's so excited for it.
Yep.
Jason, you can plug whatever you want to plug here on Down to Dunk. What should Thunder fans be checking out that you're doing right now?
I think there's two things. One, the Mind the Game podcast. It's a little
have you heard of it?
It's a little homegrown thing between an ex-NBA player and a current NBA player. But I think y'all particularly like this upcoming episode. It's our first remote one. It's a lot of sort of like what happened in the Denver series for LeBron, but there is also sort of like who are the people that like matter in these playoffs. And LeBron immediately went to Lou Dort, and it was just a great Lou Dort fest. So you guys are gonna love that. On a side note, we just brought on Richard Jefferson's podcast, Road Tripping, on our network. So if you are all interested in supporting that, I think that's gonna be a lot of fun because JJ's gonna be on a pod a lot, and the two of them they bicker like a married couple. So it's wonderful.
That's great. Thanks for joining me on a Saturday. Hopefully your son's game isn't getting rained out right now. I'm looking outside. It's raining. I don't know if it's raining down.
You said hopefully it's not getting rained out? Brother. Hopefully it is getting rained out. Come on now. I'm not raising Messi out there. No.
Jason, see you Tuesday night for sure. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll
See you
see if
Tuesday
Tumbleson,
night.
we'll see if Tumbleson lets me go.
Let's see. Thanks so much for listening. Hey, we got a lot of people tuning in here on YouTube. Just hit the like button. That's all I want you to do. Just do that one thing. Hit the like button, and we will talk to you guys again on Monday.